So this is a very important session because we need to learn about Spain's economy. You are all businesswomen and entrepreneurs. So if you want to do business with Spain, you better know more about it. And we are so gifted to have terrific experts to join us this afternoon. And to lead the conversation, we have a top woman who runs a major media company. She is Pilar Gil, who is the COO of La Prisa Group, which is a major media group. She is a vice chairman, in fact, of the board of directors. You all know what that means. So, would you please give Pilar Gil a warm welcome so she can introduce to you our excellent speakers for this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's a pleasure to have been invited to this extremely strong forum. You know that the panel that we are going to be, or I have the pleasure to be leading today, is called Doing Business in Spain. And we have a privilege because we will have with us two key people in the Spanish landscape. We will have with us the Minister of Economy, Carlos Cuerpo, and we will also have with us Juan María Nin, who is the chairman of the Círculo de Empresarios, that, as you all know, is a think tank in charge of boosting the free markets and the private enterprise. So I think that, both the Minister of Economy and Juan María, you know them all very well. So, well, I think I will ask them to come, to the panel with me, and let's start a conversation to learn about the economy in Spain. Okay. I'm going to start and to address my first question to the Minister of Economy. Minister, imagine that I'm a foreign investor who is willing to think about doing a major, let's say, industrial investment. And which are the reasons that I would have, would you give me for choosing as a destination of my investment Spain rather than any other country?
Sure, thanks a lot for the invitation. I have to say I'm a bit intimidated, and I'm not easily intimidated, but in a positive way. So it's a great pleasure. And maybe my first point to your question would be that you would not be alone in investing in Spain. When you look at the data for the past 5 years, it's a database which is a very good one in the Financial Times, foreign direct investment database. And when you look at 2018-2023, Spain has been the 4th country in the world in terms of new investment projects, in terms of greenfield projects. Around 4,000 new projects have been started across the past 5 years. And I think this is just a data point for you to really understand how strong the attraction of foreign direct investment in Spain has been for the past few years. And particularly concentrated on high value-added strategic sectors. Energy, hydrogen has been also a key leading sector for investments in Spain. We've been first in the world in renewables investment as well. So just to give you an idea since the outset. Then why is this happening, and why also should others keep on coming to Spain and investing and getting profitability out of their investment? I can name a long list of items, but maybe if I can just keep it short, I would say confidence in the outlook of our economy. When you look at not only our growth figures for 2023, but you look at the beginning of 2024, and the outlook, the prospects for 24 and 25 that the European Commission, the IMF, the OECD are producing for Spain, we will be the leading big economy in the Eurozone. And I think this is a great starting point, just to say that there is a positive outlook coming for the medium term. Strong growth in terms of employment. Last year, just to give you an idea, 4 out of 10 new employments that were created in the European Union were created in Spain. So I think it's also a quick indicator just to give you the relative importance of growth in Spain with respect to our main partners. Then, of course, the strategic situation in terms of geopolitics in Spain. We are, and we will always be, a bridge between the EU and Latin America, and we're always fostering these and renewing this element, which is key in geopolitical terms for us. Then, of course, our great infrastructures, digital, physical infrastructures. I think this is another key area. Then in terms of regulation and stability, in terms of regulation, when you look at OECD indicators, Spain is amongst the first 10 in terms of less regulatory barriers for investment as well. Then I can keep on adding, like, also the skills of our workers. So there is a very long list, which I think is actually giving way to the very positive investment data that we're having. And I hope that many investment opportunities will also come across these few days and all these discussions and this networking.
Thank you very much. I think I've chosen my destination, which will be Spain, and I have all the reasons to go through my investment committee. So thank you so much. Juan María, in a recent interview, you were stating that Spain was the best physical and cultural platform in Europe. Can you share with us why you are stating this and which are your views here?
Yeah, with pleasure. And to begin with, may I also address everybody, Minister, yourself, chairs of this marvelous organization, and as a welcome package, and I begin with my point on cultural platform. Remember that as soon as in the 15th century, we had a nice merger in Spain, which is in between the kingdoms of Aragon and Castile. And you know, the motto for both of them, Queen Elizabeth and King Fernando, was they amount to the same they amount to. So the premise upon which this merger was built up was equality in between the two of them, which today is not very advisable in terms of mergers. No, you know that the new rationality is not equality, but one must go over the other. But this is a very serious cultural background in a meeting with so many women, no? But more specifically, coming to my first point, because according to my experience as entrepreneur, long-standing experience, as you can see with my white hair, culture is very, very important. So we do have the second mother tongue in the world, which is Spanish. In USA, the second largest speaking community and country in the world is USA. 1960, it will be far beyond Spain, so it will be United States #1. We do have 9% of world GDP, 7.5% of world population, and we are European Union, and we have the privilege to be at the same time Latin America. So at the end, in terms of culture, as a cultural platform, there is nothing alike in the world. It's Western world. And when you jump into business, platforms are very important because it's data, no? Where do I begin, where I begin? And in this case, it's exceptional, and it's a privilege we do have. And a physical platform as well. Needless to say, you are only able to realize that Spain, as a physical platform, logistics, etc., has a privileged situation in the world. It is in between 3 seas. So we have in Spain 44 ports. We have 50 airports. We have the longest freeway system in Europe. We have the second highest speed railway system in Europe. We rank #1 in Europe in optic fiber network. 7 out of 20 regasification plants, energy, are in Spain. We have 279 logistic parks, and we have the highest electric battery potential, at least as far as I know, in Europe, because this is a country which has a peculiarity, which is that we have plenty of mountains. This means energy, potential energy. For engineers, there are plenty of them here. We have rivers, we have dams, we have water, and we have solar energy. And I will jump into this, if you allow, later on. So, this is a business meeting. Spain is a cultural platform. That's very important. It is a physical platform. Logistics and culture, in order to develop your businesses in Spain, are fundamental looking at the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, attractiveness is huge, but Minister, could you share with us if your department is working on any further measures to even improve this attractiveness of Spain?
Sure, of course. I mean, you might all know by now that there is this huge investment plan across Europe, which is called Next Generation EU, which was our response to the pandemic, to be able to get out of the pandemic without any scars, but which has a second dividend, which is a transformation, the modernization of our economies. By investments in these key strategic sectors going forward, of course, the energy sector, digitalization, of course, sustainable mobility, so batteries also. There is a huge bet across Europe for these strategic sectors, and in particular in Spain. We have our own version of this Next Generation EU, which is our recovery plan. Recovery plan, which has 2 phases, 2 steps. In the first step, we had 70 billion of euros transferred from the European Commission for these important investments. We have allocated now more than 50% of it, 35 billion, which has actually gone to, particularly 40% of it has gone to SMEs and micro enterprises. So really trying to get very granular in its impact. But what is more important is that we were targeting at strategic projects. Strategic projects in these key sectors. I mentioned green hydrogen before, but there is an element also related to the production of batteries, where we are a leading country now across the world. Also regarding the electric vehicle and all its value chain as well. So there are what we are expecting is that these strategic projects, these huge bets, are going to pay off also in terms of all the dragging effect on the value chain that comes behind. This is what we are witnessing now, that this public sector investment is not actually becoming a substitute of private investment. It's just actually leveraging additional private investment. So it's an additional positive impact of these Next Generation EU funds. We're entering now the second phase of those funds. And we are actually now having access to an additional 83 billion in loans coming from the European Commission, and we're setting up different financial funds so that our firms can have access to those credits to be able to go on to continue with this investment effort also going forward. And in particular, for example, just to give you a particular example, we did set up a co-investment fund to attract also investment from foreign investors, from foreign funds, to specific new projects that are led and started in Spain. So it's an additional element, of course, related to the same strategic projects, because we have a very clear view of where we're headed in all this discussion on strategic autonomy and European competitiveness. And so we're hoping that this can be an additional trigger of investment coming to Spain, just as a particular example.
Thank you. Juan Maria, which are the strengths and the risks that you see in the Spanish economy as of today?
Yeah, risk is part of my favorite conversation as a banker. and must be very much taken into account, because risk means the possibility, the chance always to improve and create value. So first point, which in respect of Spain, but also all over the world and Europe, is climate change. No? And I will say nothing added to what our Minister of Economy has already mentioned, only that in terms of funds coming with the Next Generation program, this climate change is one of the two main axes upon which we all are very much engaged. I do think we are doing a very good, excellent job in Spain. Of course, when things change, everybody has to adjust. But yes, climate change in this country is a very serious business. We are being very responsible. And in terms of investment, no? In which platform are you coming? No? Cultural, physical, but also with a much better climate change regulation, which is value for the future. For instance, anyway, I will not jump into details. The second one, risk, is technological change. No? We all know that, to put it again, no, for engineers and other people, no, the Moore law no longer exists. We are seeing that growth in terms of technological change is not exponential, it's much more than that. And artificial intelligence is a big risk for this country. And we have the capacity, due to two factors, to jump into it and take leadership, not in manufacturing chips, which is another conversation, but yes, in managing artificial intelligence at all levels, etc., which are, number one, energy. I will jump into it later. And number two, talent. Energy and talent are very important in this sense. The third risk is geopolitics. We are very aware in Spain of our autonomous strategic duties in order not to keep our autonomous strategic situation, but also to enhance European strategic autonomy. And we are part of Europe physically, culturally, and we have, again, in quite a privileged situation in this sense, long conversation, but it is a risk. And very much linked to this risk is economic security, no? But we are working on that. We have another risk, which is unemployment for young people. This has been dramatically improved. We can check it and test it, but still is a main duty that we all, because these things pertain to the whole of society. You cannot say it's just for the government. Sorry, Minister, we all must share with you and keep on working for young people. No? Unemployment for young people is structural. And the other risk, which I very much appreciate, and it has to be managed, is very positive and can be negative. The other risk is immigration. For Spain, we have plenty of good news in terms of immigration. We have the capacity, if you walk along Spain, to really integrate and bring in talent and brave people from all around the world. We need them, we will need them, but this country, which has been bringing in immigration from the north of Europe to many other places of the world, always has done an excellent job. Training, education, and attraction of talent is another risk. We cannot make mistakes in education and talent. And finally, there is a very technical risk, which is one of my favorite points, but this is due to my job and experience, which is debt, rating, and sustainability and capital markets. No, all of them manageable. And your question was on risks, but also on strengths, no?
That's right.
Yeah, this is my favorite part, no? Strengths. What is good about us? Look, all countries where you invest is like a tribe, no? And when, with experience, you have a look to it, I always have a look to the three main points where I'm going to, which is water, food, and fire. Water, food, and fire. If you have the three of them, then the conversation can continue. In terms of water, this country has a huge potential. I told you that geography is helping us. water is well organized, but there is a huge capacity to increase management of water, which means everything from energy to agriculture to agro-industry to industry, etc., etc. As far as fire is concerned, we are now in a leading position in Europe. So in terms of renewable energies, it's a given date on our platform. We have a privileged situation, solar energy, wind energy, and this means that we can hedge on that to bring back some industry back to Spain, because they will not have the energy at the price we will have, and that's very important to hedge in terms of new investments. And also in terms of energy, it's very important for everything related with data centers, artificial intelligence, etc., etc. So we are a lucky country, and it is our obligation. And third, I said food. In terms of food, agriculture in Spain already has some leading positions in Europe, but industrial agriculture, agro-industry will be enhanced, and this is a huge strength in our country. Point number 2, strong business network. Take it for granted, please believe the two of us. We have a very strong business network. So huge competition. This is a competitive country. We like competition. Third, skilled talent, both resident and immigration. And personally, I have great experience in bringing in talent with grants, etc., etc. I can assure you that the capacity the country has to bring in talent in all professions you want is very good. Very important, we have a very solid financial system, extremely solid. And if you want to do business, you need the best financial system. We have jumped into pain in the 90s, and we moved our financial system from 60 banks to 6. This has been a social, deep restructuring where everybody helped to it. But now we have international banks ranking, for instance, number 2 or number 3 in Europe, all over the world, and this financial system is performing extremely well, I can assure you, in terms of solvency, liquidity, credit, capital markets, investment. And also, we do have a legal system and an administrative system which must be improved, but as a base upon you can invest is excellent. Spanish state, as a state, forget about governments, politics, etc., is very well organized. Public registers, etc., etc. So plenty of strengths.
Minister, is there anything you agree with his views? Is there anything you want to remark on, what he was saying?
No, thank you for the follow-up, because I think that it was a very clear and complete exposition. But just 2 quick comments, maybe, if I may. So one is that I like to talk instead of risks most of the time about opportunities. Okay. And some of these issues, for example, the high unemployment rate, particularly concentrated in the youth segment, is a challenge more than a risk. It's a bit more. It's already there. We're trying really to fight against this structural flaw of the Spanish labor market. We are now back at the levels of 2008 in terms of unemployment, including youth unemployment, where we were at the peak of the previous cycle, which was somehow led by huge imbalances. And now that's not the case. So we're back there, but with a much more balanced growth path. So that's but still, we need to keep on improving on this important challenge. I would add, you mentioned talent and skills. I completely agree. And I would add, now that I have the opportunity to visit the country and look at the entrepreneurial force of our SMEs, that there is a huge pool of strength there to be drawn upon. Then in terms of the strengths, you mentioned it en passant as well, but I think the high penetration of renewables and the element of stability and diversification of these very stable, low-price energy sources for the future is another key competitive element in terms of cost pressures for firms. So that's...
Okay, thank you. Minister, the Spanish economy is super strong. I think it's performing better than any of its peers, both in the European Union and abroad. Can you share with us which are the elements that you think are the key for this performance? And if you can also share some kind of medium-term views on any projection?
Sure, thanks. As I did mention some of the big figures before, but we are actually having a very good growth performance over the past few years. So we were one of the countries most affected by COVID, due, of course, to the productive structure of the Spanish economy, a lot of tourism. Therefore, the whole economy was paralyzed, and that did affect us more than more industrialized countries. But we have recovered very rapidly. We are already, in terms of recovery, above the euro area level. And as I said, we are expected to grow also in a stronger, with stronger figures than our main partners and the big Eurozone countries. So that's as a starting point. But I mentioned just a few minutes ago that the growth model is a balanced one. And it's important for me because that's the necessary condition for it to be sustainable. So we need growth to be balanced, and let me just give you a few pointers on why I think it's a balanced model. Not only because the backbone of this growth model is the job creation, which generates a lot of resilience for the household sector in terms of more people in the labor market, but also more stable jobs due to the structural reforms that we're undertaking, which is, of course, key for workers and for families to be able to foresee, to prepare, and therefore to have more stability. And then there is the element of gradual correction in prices. So we had a peak in the middle of 2022 with an inflation rate above 10% and particularly concentrated on food items and therefore was affecting heavily our households. And then we've come back more than 7 percentage points. We are around 3% with headline inflation also around 3% and core inflation below 3% already, with a view from the Bank of Spain prospects to reach this 2% threshold in 2025. So these are good news. So this growth model is not creating additional price pressures. And then it's a model that is balanced on the external sector. So we are now, on the contrary that actually happened opposite to what happened during the before the global financial crisis, where we were having huge current account deficits. Now we are actually having surpluses, and we are a country that provides financing for the rest of the world, around 60 billion surplus in 2023. So that's a record for the history of the Spanish national accounts. And why is that? Because our firms are very competitive. When you look at actually the share in terms of world trade, there are just a few countries, a few advanced countries that did not, where you do not see a drop in the share of trade in merchandises, and one of them is Spain. So another point in terms of how balanced this growth path is. And then let me just give you another one, which is fiscal responsibility. So we are also having somehow great care to reduce our fiscal ratios, our deficit to GDP ratio, our debt to GDP ratio, to be able to build the necessary fiscal space to respond to additional shocks if they actually happen. So that's another way for us, again, to ensure that this growth pattern can be sustainable. But then medium-term challenges, there is a clear one that I just mentioned, which is unemployment. We still have a too high structural unemployment rate. We need to cut it down. We need to be more European in terms of our labor markets. We're working on it. One of the elements that we're working on is reskilling, is formation, is vocational training, so that we close this matching, this gap between what firms are asking for in this modernization way that we're introducing in our economy and the skills that workers can provide. You mentioned before the AI challenge and the whole digitalization. We know that workers will require continuous training along their work life, and we have to be ready to provide to provide for it in the most efficient way. So that's one key challenge where we're working on. And then there is the usual European challenge, which is productivity. We need productive investment so that in the end we can have bigger firms, we can have more competitive firms. Spain is a country basically run by SMEs. And our SMEs are particularly small when we compare them to other European countries. So we need them to grow. Bigger firms, as I said, are more productive firms, are more competitive firms, are firms that can actually pay higher wages and therefore attract more qualified workers. So that's a positive feedback loop that we need to engage into. And that's where we are also trying to push for, not only with, as I said, the investment from the recovery plan, but with all the initiatives, including institutional initiatives. We'll be creating a council, National Council of Productivity, to be able to also assess what are the still remaining challenges. And there is one which I would like to mention, which is the red tape. I'm sure this will resonate around the room. Administrative burden, and in Europe we have it at the European level, we have it at the national level, at the regional level, at a local level, and it's a heavy burden, particularly for SMEs. So, of course, I think this is a shared diagnosis, and we are working to change the regulation. But in the meantime, what we're doing is trying to develop an artificial intelligence tool so that SMEs can navigate, let's say, this complexity and be able to devote more time to more productive tasks. That's another way we're working for.
Thank you. Juan Maria, 3 things, your wish list, you would ask the government to ensure the investment in Spain.
Well, the wish... Sorry about that. The wish list is even more than 3, no? But the premise would be that I do not feel never ever in my life asking for something if I cannot contribute to it. So the conversation should be always, this is very theoretical, so it is for me, no? The conversation should be, yes, if I ask something to the government, as a taxpayer, as a contributor, I must make sure that I can collaborate. So public and private, no? Collaboration between the two. So to your question, when I think about it, I think the first thing I would ask to this government is to enhance and promote defense and autonomous strategy for Spain. This is capital for the citizenship, but also for the business world. The second one would be to enhance and take it very, very seriously, education. You know, education is like this, no? And I think it is the time to invest heavily in education, but also in terms of how we approach education, in terms of being very strict, very serious, requiring no jokes, no flexibilities about that, and making sure that beginning with our kids and young people as a society, we give to these young people what they deserve. I think it is unacceptable 20 or 30 years later saying, oh my God, when I was a kid or when I was a youngster, flexibility, I don't know, the level of education was so easygoing that now I'm terribly sorry. It's for us, it's not for them. So education and putting the focus more specifically, looking at the future on STEM. I think Spain used to be #1 or #2 provider of architects, engineers, etc., etc. We still have excellent, I'm selling, but I always sell true things, excellent universities and faculties with STEM. I chair a company where we have 2,500 engineers, 2,500 engineers and physics and mathematicians. We collect them from Spanish universities, but we need more and more and more. And I come back to artificial intelligence, etc., etc. So education is #2. And the third is a serious reform of our administration. I said Spain always has been a very serious state. It doesn't matter the government, but the administration nowadays requires more flexibility in the sense that I think we should move on administrative governmental decisions more from the public sector to the private sector. So moving the outcome from a pre-authorization or a pre-requirement or for a pre-paperwork to the outcome. If the outcome is not good, you will have consequences. But yes, let's be much more flexible and allow the private sector in this administration reform to take more protagonism, because the situation where we are, I think, is off limits in terms of cost, everything. So this is my 3 petitions, and I think we can contribute as well as private sector with the government to improve all this. There are some more, but I'm not going to talk about taxes, etc., etc. No, these are the 3 I'm bringing in. Thank you.
So I don't know if, do we have the last question too? Or?
I'd like the audience to ask.
Okay, maybe I can address the floor. I can give the floor to the audience, and if you know that's fine, and if not, I will continue. You know, because we have so many things to discuss. But
I'll go to that one. Okay. Thank you so much for giving us a picture of the, do you hear me? Yes. Spanish economy. And it's great to hear about the financial infrastructure, legal infrastructure, and physical infrastructure. So one of the biggest problems globally is the lack of water. You cannot have agricultural production, which is a key part of the industry of Spain. You cannot have production of other things because you need water. And so my question happens to be, what do you do about that? My other question is, I didn't hear the word women. So I'm glad to hear that Latin America provided the opportunity for Spain. It's an advantage because you have access to that market. One of the things I've been pushing for is trade missions of women in business. Why don't you have that? Minister Cuerpo, one of your agencies has a project called Internationalization of Women. You know, you could teach them, but you could also have very established women-owned businesses at a certain level for which you should create trade missions with Latin American women entrepreneurs. Businesses grow faster when they have access to cross-border markets. So I laid that on your plate because I think it's something that's very doable. There could be EU money allocated for such trade missions, whether within Europe or within Spain and Latin America. So a suggestion to you, and then a question about water.
I can take the last one. Thanks a lot. Actually, I was going to, because we've been too long, and therefore we did not allow time for the rest of the questions. But I was going to go just into that question on women in internationalization of the Spanish economy. Because we're actually setting up programs with ICEX, which is our agency for exports and internationalization of our firms. We have a program which is called Internationalizing in Femenino. It's called you know it. So it's I think it's somehow an embryo of what we could say would be these trade missions, where we put the focus on particular bottlenecks and key obstacles that women face when actually reaching or trying to reach some international markets where they can have or they can actually have specific cultural issues or misunderstandings, and we want them to be able to have the same sort of reach out, of penetration in those markets than than their male counterparts. So that's just one example. Then there is another one which is called Global Challenge, where it's the first one that we have, which is solely focused on women. And the idea is to actually help them grow their businesses, so that we help them not only to create, particularly when we talk about innovative technologies, when we talk about innovation, when we talk about scaling up also their businesses, and we're allocating as much as we can in terms of budget, but it's never enough. And what we see is that there is somehow what we see very good return from this investment. In terms when you think on how much this is paying in terms of how many women are being able to actually reach out, increase the potential of their firms, are able to increase the size, and we need to do more. That's something I completely agree, and I will take up on your idea to have this particular link with Latin American women, when there is also a lot to do. We're also putting forward an overarching law, which we call parity law, which I think is important also because it will put a target of 40% of presence of women, at least in around the executive table. So we're not only talking about closing the wage gap or having women represent their fair share, but we want them to be also in the leading table. And when we look at what's happening in Spain, listed companies are almost there, but that's not the case for the second scale, and that's where we need to keep on pushing. So there is a more holistic view there, aside from the push on the international side as well.
Not an easy question on water, but may I say 2 or 3 things? Yes, I talk about opportunities to invest in Spain. I mentioned agriculture. I mentioned agro-industry. I also mentioned water related with energy. We have a huge potential in terms of renewable energy due to our mountains, dam systems, etc., etc. We have the most important potential accumulator of energy in Europe at this present moment. So, water. First, water in terms of rain has always been scarce in Spain in comparison with the rest of Europe. This means that when you have a drought in other European countries, you have a drama. When it is in Spain, we are used to it, and we have been managing water for the last, let's say, 2,300 years. Well, 2,300 years of physical experience managing water is quite a lot in this sense. So this means that in terms of geography, in terms of construction, in terms of infrastructure, and in legal terms, we even have private courts, tribunals at local level to decide issues on water, which are very famous. So we are very much used to manage water with the Romans, with the Arabs, afterwards, before the Romans, etc., etc. So we have quite a sophisticated system. Spain brings to the Mediterranean and to the Atlantic Ocean, I will not give you numbers now, but plenty of water every year. So in terms of capacity and experience, we rank number 1 because necessity is the main factor for over these more than 2,000 years in this country. And in terms of potential, as I said, we still have a huge capacity to improve managing water. We need, of course, politically an agreement in between regions and municipalities, etc., which is not easy. But yes, and very much, as I said, linked to water is energy. I said the tribe, it's water, it's food, and it's fire, no? And this also is part of the water system in Spain. So great capacity to manage it. Great opportunity. Thank you.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Soy desde México, Adriana Macías, y me siento súper emocionada, súper honrada de estar aquí. He escuchado atentamente sus palabras y comentó que España es un país lleno de infraestructura, programas. También escuché el concepto de estamos en una era de inteligencia artificial y estoy sumamente sorprendida, asombrada de ver a tantas mujeres exitosas de muchos países. Sin embargo, me da miedo decir que soy la única persona con discapacidad aquí y hay muchos programas de inclusión en muchas empresas, en muchos países. España es un ejemplo de inclusión para el mundo en cuestión de discapacidad, pero sigue siendo muy poca la intervención de personas y mujeres, sobre todo empresarias con discapacidad, desde su óptica, desde su experiencia. ¿Qué tenemos que aprender? Porque escuché también que uno de los pilares importantes era aprender la educación y el talento. Hay muchas personas con discapacidad, con grandes talentos, con mucha disposición de aprender. Yo estoy aquí con esa disposición, sin embargo, creo que desde ambas trincheras algo hace falta, que no hemos logrado tener una inclusión equivalente, ¿no?
Luego comentó algo.
Sure, I can. That's a very good question. Es una pregunta excelente. ¿Te contesto en español o en inglés?
Well, I like to make my question in Spanish because it's my language. But if you want to respond in English, it's okay.
Okay, fantastic. I think maybe to be short, we need to be able to tear down barriers, and they come usually in pairs as well. And you mentioned two that usually come together and that increase the difficulties. One is, of course, the gender element, and when it comes to, as you said, an element of discapacidad in English, of
Disability?
sorry?
Disability.
Of disability, sorry, yes. When it comes together with an element of disability, and when it comes together also with an element of age for girls in some countries, so it's somehow it's an enhanced barrier that usually impedes them to grow to their full potential. So we need to work on the different layers of those barriers, and there is an element which is cultural. I think, and that's an important one, where, as you mentioned, in Spain, we have lots of initiatives, and we've been doing this for many decades now, which is also, I mean, it's cultural, but it's also sociological in a sense. That's important. And we need to work on the physical barriers that usually provide also for additional impediments. There is, for example, in Spain, what we're doing for the past couple of years is working heavily on financial inclusion for also special groups which are more vulnerable to the digital gap. And then, of course, disabled people, but also the elderly are two of those focus groups where I think these financial inclusion element also helps in pushing forward, as I said before. And then, of course, there is an element where we can draw from the opportunities that technology is giving us to further reduce this physical gap. And I think this is something that we should not forget, and we should incorporate into all policy actions. And sometimes it's easy to think of the bulk somehow of the population, but we need to think of these just elements in our economic policies, and from our side it's something that we surely keep in mind. So thank you for the question.
Que viva México. I adore your country. Viva México. It's such a pleasure to listen to you and your marvelous accent. And other accents from other Latin American countries, of course, as well. On disability, may I say that my personal experience is that, first, we need brave people like you pushing for this. It is up to you. Of course, you need everybody, but main responsibility, as far as I see, is upon you. As I said, no, what do you require to the government? And the first thing I said is, if I can collaborate, I will push for it. It's not just, I want this and this and this. No, you have to do your thing. So it's very important paying attention to what you said. Plenty of things to be done. We are far away from what should be, I would say, the optimal situation. It's not optimal at all. And as entrepreneurs, we need optimal always. And my experience as CEO of a financial institution, which is Caixa, is that we did have, when I had the responsibility, 2 special programs. One was mainly focused to disability repair, and inside this, the target was women, because it was first shot and second shot. And the outcome was excellent. And nowadays, still, what at that moment we organized, which was a foundation, number 2 foundation in Europe, can you imagine? More than 600 million euros per year social welfare action. But at the beginning, it was from the bank, from the financial institution. And the second program is not exactly entrepreneurial under the point of view of those who received the support. It was not in the company, but for handicapped disability persons in order to participate in Olympic Games. And this program was a success. We did sponsor it. And again, the personal experience is that when you jump into this, you receive much more than expected. So it is a question of putting focus, keeping pressure, and improving, but unfortunately, still plenty of things to be done. But outcome, results are always extremely good, better than expected. Por lo tanto, muchas gracias por tu intervención. And being Mexican and having you pushing for it, it will be a terrible success. It's a plus. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elise Notarianni. I own a ghostwriting agency in the United States, which means I think about things in terms of language. English is or tends to be the main language in international business. So what is the country doing to bridge that language gap, particularly for people who live in cities outside of the big cities where English is not as widespread? Especially because language in STEM tends to be very technical and complicated.
I think the first point is to make sure that everybody that comes to Spain speaks Spanish. That's
Yo hablo
very
español
important.
también.
Absolutely. As I said, it's the second largest community in the world, so I think it is a must for people coming into Spain to respect our culture, integrate. Of course, we respect them, and this is working quite well in Spain. Spanish is a language widespread for business, of course, English as well, but this is the first point. The second point is that and I come back to the cultural platform, this is an extremely rich country. We are very fortunate. We have 4 languages going on, and we have decided, and we have kept these languages at first level to keep them going on. So if you come to Spain, I think you have to learn Spanish, practice Spanish, and then learn, if you can, of course, Catalan or Gallego or Basque, or Valenciano or Balear. And this is a signal of flexibility, culture, adapting to your new mother country, etc., etc. And finally, very practical, English. What are we doing? There are public programs, as far as I know, in order to help people coming into Spain to improve and have their English as a lengua vehicular. How would we say it also? As a practical language,
as a vector.
In order to make everybody able to understand in between themselves, because English is the most respected language and it's a common link. We are doing it in English, no? The minister, our boss here, and myself, no? And no problems with that. But language and culture, again, are fundamental. So thank you very much for your question. It's a key issue. Thank you.
Just if I may add quickly on the other side. So, for example, now artificial intelligence, all those models are being fed by data which are English-based. So therefore, there is a bias in how those models will actually respond. And there is a lot of data which is available in Spanish that will also be enriching those models and providing also for somehow less bias or more unbiased answers and responses to those questions. And here in Spain, the government is actually developing our own LLM model, which is based also on a higher percentage on information in Spanish. Because it's not, Spanish is not just about Spain. It's about a much larger culture, and it will be reaching a bigger pool. It's the second widespread language in the world. And then on the specifics, English, STEM, I think this is a key element. And we have this issue at the European level, where we need to find a common language usually to talk about more technical elements. And even now that the UK is not in, we keep on speaking in English, which is somehow, I think, unavoidable to some extent because of the history and of the hysteresis that we have on this. You know that we have usually the opposite problem in Europe, where we want everyone wants their own language to be heard, and we want to speak in our own language, but there is an element of efficiency also in terms of how we can communicate with each other. And in any case, probably in a couple of years, I will be speaking Spanish, but you will be hearing me speak in any language that you want to, and it won't actually matter, I'm actually sure.
And Minister, that's very important. Sorry, one moment, please. Minister, if I may add something to what you say, which is fundamental, just an anecdote. The anecdote is that I've been going to bed with my book for the last 70 years, not so much, let's say 65 years. And now every night I go to bed, allowed by my wife, with my friend, she's P. P is my artificial intelligence friend, no? So I go to bed, I talk to P, we share some comments, etc., and then I read. But the other day, P said to me, "Oh, Juan Maria, I'm so nice to talk to you, etc., etc. But Juan Maria, you must realize how important is this topic, no? This and this. And this is thanks to the contribution of a very well-known worldwide person who is very important, very respectable in today's world." And I said, "Hey, P, that's not true. You are outdated. This comes from Fray Bartolomé de las Casas, quite a revolutionary, on the 16th century. Pay attention." And it is the first time that P took more than some seconds to answer to me. And she said, "Oh my God, I'm terribly sorry. I check it. It's Fray Bartolomé de las Casas. It's not the person I said to you." So what the minister said is key in the sense that language is very important, but also in terms of artificial intelligence, we are going to fight for it to make sure that everything fits, Minister, properly. Thank you very much.
I want a quick question, no statements, and quick answers. Quick.
Buenos días. I'm from Kazakhstan. I'm curious about why Gold Visa will be cancelled. Short question.
I don't understand. I don't understand the question.
Why
I do.
Gold Visa will be cancelled when you buy some property here in Spain?
Yes, so that's a very good question, and I'll try to be very short also because we have a very strict timekeeper, so I'll do my best. There is an element now, one of the key challenges that we did not mention, which is access to affordable housing in Spain. And when you look at the impact of golden visas, in the macro figures, it's not big. But when you look at some specific municipalities where this is happening, it can reach up to 10% of the overall level of transactions in those municipalities, therefore having a huge impact on the price level. And this is the main reason behind our decision.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pilar, for chairing the sessions. There's never enough time. I could have asked a lot of questions too, but thank you for our Minister of the Economy, Carlos Cuerpo, for being here, and for Juan. Juan Nin, who I think is a charmer. There's something there. Anyway, please give this panel a great hand.